The Mosque of Saleh Talai locates in Bawabit al-Mitwalli Square, and one can get an overall view of the whole mosque from Bab Zuwayla. It sits just across from the facing Bab Zuwayla north of the citadel. The mosque was erected by Saleh Talai ibn Ruzaiq, who was a minister in the Fatimide period. The Mosque of Saleh Talai, built by the Fatimide vizier Saleh Talai ibn Ruzaiq in 1160 during the Caliphate of Al-Faiz. It is the second oldest existing Fatimide mosque to be built by a vizier, the first being that of Al-Aqmar, and represents the last Fatimide mosque in Cairo. It is also the second of the suspended or hanging mosques after that of Al-Aqmar. The minaret of the mosque was ruined in 1303 at an earthquake. It is distinguished, however, by the simple structure and design.
During the 12th century, this mosque was built by the last vizier of the last Fatimid Caliph Al-Adid. In the year 1160, the mosque was built, and Saleh Talai built this mosque within the enclosure wall. Just as you see behind me, the facade of the mosque formed of 5 keel arched, resting over 4 columns with Corinthian capitals. There is 2 rooms on both sides, and from the doorway and the entrance hall, it leads to the open court of the mosque. The architecture of the mosque was built according to the traditional style of art, and there's fluted keel arches inside the mosque, which resting over the columns with Corinthian capitals. I have a frame, a narrow frame of Kufic script mentioning some Quranic verses. Unfortunately, during the beginning of the 14th century and at the time of Al-Nasir Muhammad ibn Qalawun, the whole mosque ruined as a matter of a big earthquake struck Cairo, which caused damage of many buildings in this city. The Committee of Preserving Arab Monuments at the beginning of the 20th century decided to rebuild the ruined part of the mosque, and they added 3 riwaqs inside the mosque. Fortunately, the 4th riwaq still preserved its original constructions, and we have the windows with colored stained glass still remained just by the Qibla wall.
The porch or the courtyard over the small shops is designed in a very remarkable way. The mosque is surrounded by a number of small shops whose rent are usually used by the maintenance of the mosque. The back wall of the mosque has some classical pillars and is decorated with ribbed and cusped keel arches. The Mashrabiyya screen above the porch and the bronze medallions on the main door of the mosque were added in the restoration of 1303. The mosque consists of a huge courtyard with columns on the 2 sides. The remains of the old decoration appear in the Quran inscriptions on the arches as well. The Fatimide style of the mosque appears in the floriated Kufic inscriptions. The sanctuary includes 3 rows of the colonnades supporting the arches, and these colonnades are differently decorated because they were taken from old Christian buildings. The Mamluk Amir Bakhtimur al-Jagundar presented the mimbar that date back to the 1300s as a gift to be placed in this mosque. It is finely decorated with geometric patterns and beautiful star forms. There is a wind scoop or a malqaj over the mimbar that was used for ventilating the sanctuary. There are original carved frames ornamented with charming Kufic inscriptions as well. Bab Zuwayla is a medieval gate in Cairo, which is still standing in the modern times. It was also known as Bawabat al-Mitwalli during the Ottoman period and is sometimes spelled Bab Zuwayla. It is considered one of the major landmarks of the city and is the last remaining southern gate from the walls of the Fatimite Cairo in the 11th and the 12th century. Its name comes from Bab meaning door and Zuwayla, the name of a tribe of Berber warriors from the Western Desert, members of which were charged with the guarding of the gate.
Now we are still exploring the area of Bab Zuwayla, and here we are still standing underneath the gate. The name of the Gate Zuwayla probably named according to the Fatimid leader in the army named Zuwayla, whose family lived here by this place. The other names named as the Gate al-Mutawalli, a man who is responsible to gather the taxes underneath the gate. Also, we can see here simply the architecture of the gate. On both sides we can see the stone carvings which was cut during the 11th century, and not far from the gate on the left hand side there is a mosque of As-Salih Tala'a ibn Ruzay, which built during the 6th century after Hijrah, and just behind there is a nice market which named Al-Khayamiyya, where the tapestry and the garments with different embroideries with gold and silver threads. This profession was known in this place since the time before the Arabs came here, or before the 7th century, and the Arabs inherited this profession, which was later inherited by the Muslims for doing the tapestry and the textile in this place.
The city of Cairo was founded in 969 as the royal city of the Fatimides dynasty. In 1092, Badr al-Jamali built a second wall around Cairo. Bab Zuwayla was the southern gate in this wall. It has twin towers or minarets, which can be accessed via a steep climb. In earlier times, they were used to scout for the enemy troops in the surrounding countryside, and in modern times they are hailed for providing one of the best views of all Cairo. This structure also has a famous platform. Executions would sometimes take place there, and it was also formed the location that the Sultan would stand to watch the beginning of the Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Sometimes the severed heads of criminals would be displayed along the tops of the walls. This was done as recently as 1811, when the severed heads of the Mamluks from the Citadel massacre were mounted on the spikes there.
As the gates was built to defend the old city of Cairo, Gate Zuwayla or Bab Zuwayla was one of those gates which defended the city from the southern side. Just here behind me we can see the ruins of the old Gate of Zuwayla, which made of wood and coated and covered with sheets of metal and some nails. Underneath we can see some copper elements which used for the coatings of the door to defend the city of Cairo. Over the door directly we have little openings which known as the mashkulas, which used to pour the boiled oil over the enemies. And at the beginning of the 20th century, the Committee of Preserving Arab Monuments decided the preservation of the whole place. Underneath the ground they found some elements and some dishes and pottery was buried under the ground. It was excavated by the committee, and a few years ago they decided another restoration for the whole door of Zuwayla. Over the gate of Zuwaila, there is two identical minarets belong to the Mosque of al Sheikh, which was built during the time of the Bahari Mamluks. The Mosque of al Sheikh was built on the ruins of an old prison, a Fatimid prison named Shama'il, and was built on the ruins behind the gate. Then, during the 11th century, Badr al-Gamali, the Armenian vizier of the Caliph al-Mustansir, decided to pull down the old gates and the walls, and he replaced it with new gates with some enlargements, totally built of stone instead of the old mud brick walls. The two identical minarets was built on the Bahari Mamluk style during the 13th century, and we can see a nice script of on the top of the minaret mentioning the name and the date of building the two minarets. Not far from the gate we have other mosques was built previously during the time of the Fatimid era. Now we are standing over the minaret, Mosque of al Sheikh, the southern minaret formed of 3 levels, and we are over the first balcony now. Just behind me we can see the details of this minaret, which was added by al Sheikh during the 14th century, and simply we can read some Quranic verses, the date and the name of the owner in cursive script. Also, the balconies, which added over the minaret, were supported with stalactites, which is the beacon, which was very fashionable during the Mamluk era. Also, just behind this minarets and behind the gate, we can see the Mosque of al Sheikh. As we previously mentioned, the mosque was built on the ruins of the old Fatimid prison named as Shama'il, and unfortunately, the door of the mosque were robbed. And the door which is now exhibited inside the mosque belonged to the madrasa of Sultan Hassan. Just behind me and within the enclosure wall near the gate of Bab Zuwaila, there is a mosque was built during the time of the last Fatimid Caliph named Al-Adad. The mosque was built in the year 555 after Hijrah, few years before the end of the Fatimid Caliphate. The mosque unfortunately ruined as a matter of a big earthquake which happened during the beginning of the 14th century of the Caliph al-Nasir Muhammad ibn Qalawun. Unfortunately, the mosque was hardly ruined. The Committee of Preserving Arab Monuments in 1924 decided to rebuild the ruined parts of the mosque, and the mosque was built according to the old style, and part unfortunately was totally lost. Just few parts of the original mosque still remain in the southeastern side, and the mosque, according to the old historians, was named as an elevated mosque, freestanding with a group of shops underneath. The revenue of these shops was used in the preservation and the restoration of the mosque.
The Mosque of Sultan al-Muayyad is a mosque in Cairo, Egypt, next to Bab Zuwayla, built by the Mamluk Sultan al-Muayyad Saifuddin Sheikh, from whom it takes the name. Construction began in 1415 and the mosque was completed in 1421. The complex included a Friday mosque and a madrasa for the former adepts. It replaced the prison which originally stood next to Bab Zuwayla. In keeping with the Mamluk custom, Al-Muayyad Sheikh was purchased by Sultan al-Malik al-Zahir Saifuddin Barquq when he was 10 or 12 years old. As an adult, he served for 10 years as the governor of Tripoli under the appointment of Sultan al-Nasir Nasir ad-Din Faraj. The historian al-Maqrizi relates the future Sultan al-Muayyad was imprisoned in the same prison which the mosque replaced, as while an emir under Sultan Faraj. Sheikh suffered too terribly from fleas and lice during the imprisonment. He vowed that he would transform the prison into a saintly place for the education of scholars if he ever came to power. And true to his word, when he became the Sultan, he commissioned the mosque.
Just behind me, we can see the facade of the Mosque of Al-Muayyad Sheikh. In the eastern corner, we can see the stalactite portal, which was added, and the gate of the mosque, unfortunately, was lost. But now we can see another door, which was originally belonged to the madrasa of Sultan Hassan. Also, the facade of the madrasa have a very nice stalactite praises on the top of the walls. Also, some windows were added with round or circular windows known as the bull's-eye windows. It's ornamented with a very nice colored stained glass, which enables the light to enter during sun day and night with different colors.
Construction of the mosque began in May of 1415. The project was an ambitious one, costing the Sultan 40,000 dinars between commencement and completion. According to al-Maqrizi, 30 builders and 100 workers labored on the structure over 7 years. The mosque required such a large quantity of marble that some of it was harvested from the pre-existing structures. Besides marble, many other parts of the mosque were cannibalized from other buildings, including the mosque's columns and a beautiful bronze door and chandelier. The door and the chandelier are particularly famous instances of his. Both are said to have come from the Mosque of Sultan Hassan. Removing parts of the current mosques was illegal while the Mosque of Sultan al-Muayyad was being built, so taking the door and the chandelier were tantamount to the stealing, despite donations that the Sultan has made to the old mosque. Although the new mosque was not officially completed until 1422, an inaugural celebration was held in November of 1419 to celebrate the new building.